Hello, this is Michael Tracy, and you know it would be untrue. You know I would be a liar if I was to say to you Jim Morrison's recent expedition to the north side of Everest did not light my fire. Despite being a ski attempt of the nearly impossible Hornbein Couloir, the expedition is now famous for Eric Ropke's spotting of a boot which turned out to belong to Andrew Irvine, with Irvine's foot still inside of it. This video will look at the expedition and the people that found Irvine's boot, as very little other information is available at this time. The expedition was called a multi-million-dollar extravaganza put together by National Geographic and North Face to film a ski descent of the Hornbein Couloir, first climbed by Hornbein and Unsold in 1963, but even they were not crazy enough to attempt to descend it. Marco Siffredi was crazy enough to attempt a snowboard descent in 2002, and unfortunately he perished in that descent. One of the few climbers bold enough to attempt a ski descent is Jim Morrison, who wants to ski down the couloir to honor the passing of his late partner, Hilary Nelson, who died on Manaslu. Morrison, Chin, and Conrad Anker had attempted the same expedition last year when Conrad Anker was denied entry to Tibet for unexplained reasons. The basic of the expedition is that there were going to be two groups, the ski ascent team led by Jim Morrison and a film team led by Jimmy Chin. Morrison was heading up the standard route and was reported as being in advanced base camp, which is on the other side of North Col from where Jimmy Chin's group was looking for filming locations. The plan appears to be that Morrison would summit via the standard route and then break on through to the other side to get to the Hornbein Couloir to make his descent. Chin's group would be lower, filming what would truly be a remarkable feat of skiing. Tasked to the film crew was Eric Ropke, who describes himself as a director, cinematographer, drone pilot, and editor. Ropke was on Everest in 2019, and he states on his website that he, quote, successfully jailbroke and piloted drones to fly at extreme altitudes. I'm going to show this clip from Ropke's Everest 2019 reel, as it shows his drone flying over the central Rongbuk Glacier. The location Irvine's boot was found is somewhere in that glacier. Whether he took closer photos in 2019 or had access to a drone in 2024 is unknown. Just for scale, this distance is approximately 1 kilometer, or 0.62 miles, and this is the direction up the slope to where Mallory's ice axe and body were found. For the 2024 ski expedition, ultimately bad weather forced Morrison to say, "This is the end," and the Hornbein Couloir remains undefeated by ski descent. And while I do not know whether they had a drone with them in 2024, I can say with absolute certainty that drone footage of a Hornbein ski descent would make for one of the best Everest films of all time, and it is difficult to believe they did not have a drone in 2024. Now, reaction to the find of Irvine's boot has been extremely positive, and while it does not answer all the questions, it does help close some of the doors on many of the more tabloid-type stories that have become popular in recent years. The following is from Julie Summers' blog. Summers is a relative of Andrew Irvine. Imagine my surprise when I received a call one morning the following week from a high-altitude filmmaker in Kathmandu who wanted to talk about an old boot he had found in a glacier on Everest a few days earlier. The boot was leather with nails for grip, meaning it had been used for climbing. There was a thick woolen sock poking out from the boot, brown and cream, café au lait, which meant the wearer had been clear that he or she wanted to keep their feet warm at altitude. Actually, I knew it was a he because no women were on Everest in the era of nailed leather boots. It matched in type, design, and weight the boot found on George Mallory's body in 1999. Could it possibly be a boot belonging to Sandy Irvine? If so, that would blow all most recent theories of the Chinese removing Irvine's body from the mountain to smithereens. How could we possibly prove it? Simple. As it turns out, stitched perfectly onto the stock was a cash's name tape, A.C. Irvine. Just as a note, there were women on the 1924 expedition who worked as porters, but none climbed above advanced base camp. This account of General Bruce's credits 2 of the women with saving the entire expedition when 52 of the men had deserted and they thought they might not be able to get all the loads up to advanced base camp. Now back to Julie Summers. In addition to being a relative of Andrew Irvine, Julie Summers is also an author who appreciates the work involved with and rewards that can be received from doing original research in the archives. While her research generally does not involve Everest, here she dug up the receipts from the archives showing the exact pair of boots and socks were purchased by Irvine in 1924 just before his departure. Thus, there's no need to wait for any DNA testing. While that may feature in some upcoming documentary about the find, it will add nothing to the conversation. In terms of the find itself, the exact location has not been released. From this photo, we can see that 5 people were involved, the 4 in the reflection in the sunglasses, and Jimmy Chin, who was wearing the glasses. From the National Geographic article, we know that the search lasted, quote, several days, and it was Eric Robke who initially saw the boot. It is not clear if he saw it on a drone photo. The article reads in a way that there is a distinct possibility it was spotted with a drone, and then they went out to investigate after that. So, what we do know is that at least 5 people were involved in a search that lasted several days, and that area had been imaged by Robke in 2019 with a drone he used in that expedition, which was apparently different from the one Renan Ozturk also used in 2019. From this, there appear to have been at least 3 separate drones on Everest in 2019. The north side of Everest was closed in 2020 up until 2023. This was by far the largest, the longest, and best financed search of Andrew Irvine that has ever taken place. I also highly suspect that drones were used in the search, as Ropke has substantial experience in operating a drone on Everest and was there to film an epic descent of the Hornbein Couloir. The narrative being pushed that this was some Cinderella story of someone stumbling across a boot sticking out of a glacier is not likely to survive the scrutiny if a documentary is released containing drone shots. The Nat Geo article clearly states that once they found a 1933 oxygen bottle, they decided to conduct a search for Irvine's remains, and that search lasted for an unspecified number of days. The problem searching the bottom of the glacier has never been that no one thought it was a possibility. It was simply not a possibility to meaningfully search that area on foot. As you can see in the photo, there are folds and seracs, and just traversing that glacier would be difficult enough, let alone zigzagging back and forth in a search pattern. But to do all of that search with a drone is trivial, and by far the most efficient way to do it. So technology marches on, and I highly suspect a drone was used in this find. And while technology does many things, there is also the risk of the over-reliance on pseudoscientific theories that even now are being pontificasted in various corners of the internet. The latest bit of quackery is that by studying glacier flow rates, we can determine when the boot was deposited at the head of the glacier. And while there is a theoretical possibility that at some point in the distant future this can be accomplished, for now, the number of variables and unknowns are simply too much. Glaciers move at different speeds, at different depths, and vary from year to year. While some studies have been conducted on the Rambach Glacier, it would at best provide a wild guess at this point in time. And we don't even know the location the boot was found. I will also turn to the decision to keep the location of the boot a secret. The poll on this is split 60-40 at this time, so clearly a large number of people think it is a good idea to keep it secret. But the location is in China, not Nepal. China tells some Sherpas not to climb in that location. They won't climb in that location. If they tell them to report any Westerners going into that location, they will. Any treasure seekers would just use drones, and it is difficult to believe that the 2024 team didn't have a drone and have already searched the surrounding glacier for additional remains. So if there is some group of treasure seekers out there, knowing the precise location will be of no benefit. They will just fly their drones over the entire area in a zigzag fashion, and it would not make a bit of difference where the boot was found. So ultimately, what does all of this tell us? It rules out that Irvine fell down the Kangshung face. That theory gets bandied about every now and then. It rules out the Chinese removing Irvine entirely and putting his body in a museum. It also rules out the idea that anyone ever believed the story that the camera or the summit rocks or any other type of proof that Irvine had on him had been removed by the Chinese. Although one particular National Geographic team has been inundating us with rumors and innuendo for the last couple of years that the camera is locked up in a museum in Lhasa, as soon as another Nat Geo team found a 1933 oxygen bottle, they suddenly thought it would be a good idea to look for the camera. Not in the Chinese museum, where we were assured it was being kept, but at the bottom of the glacier. Now, information about the climb is just beginning to trickle out, and as we learn more, I'll have more to say. But as has been the case for the past 100 years, Andrew Irvine's complete story and the summit rocks that might still be in his pockets are still waiting for the sun.